aeronautical engineer and a decorated Air Force colonel. Although husband had flown before, this was his first mission as commander.
Our mission will be conducting research that will help to enhance life for all of us here on Earth.
On Columbia, husband was responsible for conducting several experiments. A researcher at heart who leaves behind a wife and 2 children.
It's going to be my first flight, hopefully not the last flight.
Also on board, Israel's first astronaut, 48-year-old Llan Ramon, a colonel in the Israeli Air Force, a husband, a father of 4, the son of a Holocaust survivor.
Every time you're the first, it's meaningful. And to be the first Israeli astronaut is meaningful to a lot of people, I believe all the people of Israel. It's also meaningful for a lot of the Jewish community throughout the world.
Meaningful, too, for his fellow crewmates, a tight group that bonded together quickly.
He's a hard charger, wonderfully warm and personable, and because of that, I think without question, across the board, we've all come to embrace and love Llan.
The mission's pilot, William Willie McCool, made it clear this was a crew he admired. McCool was a naval commander, former test pilot, and a beloved husband. The 41-year-old from San Diego logged more than 2,800 flight hours before NASA even tapped him to become an astronaut.
Most of my time will be up on the flight deck in the mid-deck working payloads that are manifested there.
Always a high achiever, McCool was an Eagle Scout and graduated second in his class at the U.S. Naval Academy, the kind of success he also found at NASA. Success also followed Dr. Kalpana Chawla. Her friends know her as KC. During her career, she was hailed as a modern-day hero in India, her homeland. In 1997, she became the first Indian-born woman in space. For her, a dream come true. On Columbia, her second flight, Casey served as lead flight engineer, a job she always wanted.
Most people here would tell you that they wanted to be an astronaut when they were 4 or 5, but it took me to be the age of 14 or 15 to say I want to be a flight engineer and pursue aircraft design. So here is my second dream come true.
In India, newspaper Saturday Morning carried her picture on the front page in anticipation of her return to Earth. Chawla's hometown had planned a homecoming celebration in her honor.
I'm the payload commander on this flight.
43-year-old Michael Anderson grew up in Spokane, Washington, excelling in science, always studying space, and always knowing that someday he'd fly there.
I went to high school in Cheney, Washington, which is a small town just outside of Spokane. An excellent high school. I had a great time there, and it helped me make my dreams come true, so I can't say enough about the high school there and all the teachers and educators there in Cheney.
A solid foundation that catapulted Anderson into the U.S. Air Force, becoming an instructor pilot, tactical officer, and a lieutenant colonel. At home, Anderson was an avid photographer, a chess player, and a loving husband. Like his fellow astronauts, Dr. David Brown loves space. This was his first flight. At 46, Anderson had already served in the U.S. Navy as a captain and an aviator. On Columbia, he would be one of the shuttle's 2 flight surgeons.
For someone who has a background both in the science, medical side, and on the operational flying side, it's kind of a real dream to be able to go do what I'm going to get to do on STS-107.
Brown was perhaps the only astronaut who also performed in the circus. While studying medicine in college, he moonlighted as an acrobat and a stilt walker. Brown was not married, but he leaves behind both his mother and his father.
I'm obviously thrilled to be on this mission. It's my first mission.
Columbia's other flight surgeon, 41-year-old Dr. Laurel Clark, was born in Iowa, but she considered Racine, Wisconsin her home. She was a wife and a mother, as well as a naval commander. During her career, Clark received 3 commendation medals, the National Defense Medal, as well as the Overseas Service Ribbon. She spent the last 2 years training for her flight into space.
I'll also have an opportunity to help out on the flight deck as a flight engineer when we come home for entry.
But none of them, none of us, could have known how their flight would end. Instead of welcoming them home, the nation now mourns these 7 astronauts. Men and women who found in space All the excitement, unending possibilities, the discoveries, and all the hope that many of us find in our heroes. Deborah Bowden, Fox 13 News.
They have to prove or disprove this debris theory before they can do anything else. And it is no small task, considering that the tiny heat tiles they suspect may have fallen off Columbia in the minutes before the orbiter disintegrated could well be the only way to find the real cause of this disaster. The enormity of NASA's task, tens of thousands of square miles of scattered wreckage, 1,200 specific sites identified, and the secret, the explanation for the disaster is somewhere out there. From the smallest pieces, so easy to miss, to the largest, twisted and broken, in testament to the sheer force of the orbiter's disintegration.
The debris field, as we said, is 28,000 square miles. So finding all of the parts of this, which I'm sure some will never be found.
NASA engineers are still digging through the last 32 seconds of data, recorded right after contact with Columbia was lost. They're hoping for important clues to exactly where the deadly heat of re-entry was building on Columbia's left side, heat that doomed the crew by broaching the orbiter's heat tiles.
So this will be probably the most open accident investigation on a magnitude of this scale that people have experienced in this time.
As if to prove its openness, NASA quickly released these engineering videos of debris engineers say is fuel tank insulation falling into Columbia's left wing. Debris that NASA engineers didn't even see until 24 hours after the launch. Debris they evaluated and deemed harmless to crew safety.
And we looked at all the indicators, examined it, analyzed it over every single day of that 16-day mission, and nothing was abnormal in the course of that.
Now consider what they're up against. The re-entry of this shuttle, 200-some thousand feet. They're looking for pieces that came off that will solve the puzzle. Here's a bit of what they're up against from Shuttle Program Manager Ron Dittemore.
You're at 220,000 feet or so, because now we're at California, Arizona. We're descending rapidly. We're going through Mach 20, 19, 18 fairly quickly. And you shed a piece of tile or two that are 6 inches by 6 inches. Where are they? That's a difficult problem. But we have people seeing if we can solve that problem. You have to know the characteristics of the tile or piece of material that you're looking for. It's traveling at high speed and it's at high altitude. And we have tools that will help us predict where that type of debris may land. But it's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
It is also vital to find, and John, they're conceding tonight for the first time, they may never know the root cause, the absolute cause of this disaster.
All right, Warren, thank you. This search for shuttle debris has moved a bit westward today. The salvage operation covers an area from the East Texas Hill Country to a suburb of New Orleans. Hundreds of federal investigators who have worked many airline crashes have joined the search now. And shrimp boat captains in the Gulf of Mexico are being asked to report anything suspicious in the water. And 2 Americans and a Russian are in space tonight on board the International Space Station. The Russians launched a supply rocket up to that yesterday. The 3-man crew has been briefed on what happened to Columbia and what their options are in case of trouble aboard the space station. A Russian Soyuz spacecraft stays permanently docked to that space station in case they have to get out of there. And the Russians say they're going to need some financial help now to pick up the slack if the American shuttles are going to be grounded for a while.
A major Israeli leader is in the Tampa Bay area tonight talking about everything from the Columbia disaster to war with Iraq. Fox 13's Giselle Guerra is in Palm Harbor with more on that. Giselle?
A big night planned ahead, Kelly, for Ehud Barak, who's visiting the Pinellas County area. Tonight, actually, he's going to be speaking at about 8 o'clock at Temple Ahavat Shalom. About 800 people expected here, but we do understand that some coupons still for this event are still available. You can actually purchase them here at the door. Of course, Mr. Barak had a chance to speak with the press earlier today. One of the very big topics on everybody's mind is that Israeli astronaut that perished as Columbia streaked over the skies in Texas. Llan Ramon, of course, a hero for Israel, the first Israeli astronaut ever to go into space. He actually, Mr. Barak, was the person who told Mr. Ramon he had gotten selected to go up in the shuttle. Of course, some of the other things that were on hand were the impending conflict against Iraq, but Mr. Barak had some very, very touching things to say about Ilan Ramon.
The hope and pride and joy turned within a second into this catastrophic disaster. I cannot stop thinking of those families as human beings.
Mr. Barak also spoke about, again, the impending war by the United States against Saddam Hussein and